Mama Wofai had two children, her daughter Wofai and Oga, her son. She had single-handedly raised them when she lost her husband many years ago. Wofai was 5 and Oga was 2 years when their father passed, and Mama Wofai's world came crashing down. After her husband's death, Mama Wofai had toiled for years in her foodstuff business to take care of her children and put them through school up to the university level. Mama Wofai had deprived herself of her basic needs just to make sure her children were okay. She had hardly bought anything for herself. As long as her children were okay, she was fine. She had made her children her only priority and neglected herself. Her late husband's family had abandoned her and the children after the death of their brother many years ago. So her own family had advised Mama Wofai to remarry, but she was not interested. All she wanted was to raise her children well and make sure they had a good education. It was a promise she had made to herself and her late husband on his sick bed. And so, day and night, Mama Wofai worked hard to make sure she fulfilled that promise. She had started to look older than her age because of the stress she was going through, but that didn't bother her. Her determination was what kept her going. As she was not educated, she believed that having a good education was going to make life easier for her children and open big doors for them. She did not want her children to suffer the way she was suffering. Eventually, her daughter Wofai graduated from the university, and Mama Wofai was glad that finally her daughter would get a good job and relieve her of some of her financial burden. Her son, Olga, was in his second year in the university and had 2 more years to go. Things were gradually beginning to fall into place, she thought. Wofai was posted to Asaba for her youth service program, and while she was there, she met and started a relationship with Ovie, who worked in an oil company. And not long after, Ovie proposed marriage. Wofai called her mother excitedly to break the news to her, but her mother did not sound happy. "Isn't it too soon, my daughter?" Mama Wofai asked her with concern. "I thought you would work for some time and save some money before thinking of settling down. You know how difficult life has been for us." Mama Wofai had always dreamt of a time when her children would be done with school and be successful in their various professions so she could be taken care of by them. She had spent so much money to sponsor her daughter to become an engineer, and now she was planning to get married without even having a proper job yet. "Yes, Mama, I know, but I love him. I will still work and make money when I'm married, and I will take good care of you. Don't worry," Wofai said, trying to convince her mother. If you say so, I believe you," Mama Wofai said, conceding defeat. Even though she was not happy about this news, she wasn't going to stand in the way of her daughter's happiness. A few months later, Wofai got married to Ovie, and her father's relatives were in attendance as custom demanded. That was the only time they had been involved in their late brother's children's lives after so many years. They had given Wofai's husband a very long list of items to buy and a big sum to pay as bride price for the traditional wedding, and everything was handed over to them. Nothing was given to Mama Wofai as the mother of the bride who had single-handedly raised Wofai. And after the wedding, they disappeared again and Mama Wofai was once again left on her own. Mama Wofai continued in her foodstuff business and was able to pay her son's school fees till he finished from the university. Olga studied accounting and was able to secure a good job in a bank in Lagos. He became so busy that he hardly had time to call his mother, and even when she called him, he would sometimes pick the call and rush her off the phone as he needed to get back to work and promised to call back later, which he often forgot to do. He worked Mondays to Saturdays, and the only free day he had was on Sundays, which he spent mostly sleeping or socializing with friends. Wofai, on the other hand, was busy with married life. In the space of 2 years, she had had two babies, and she was overwhelmed. Mama Wofai had offered to travel to Asaba to help take care of her grandchildren, but Wofai had told her not to worry. Mama Wofai could not understand it and kept asking to visit. She wasn't asking for too much, she thought. She just wanted to spend time with her daughter and grandchildren. Wofai eventually opened up to her mother and told her that Ovie, her husband, did not want her to visit. She told Mama Wofai that Ovie was being hostile to her and often mocked her for coming from a poor background. Mama Wofai's heart sank and she shed bitter tears of pain. Hearing what her daughter was going through hurt her deeply. She missed her children so much. They had been the essence of her life, and now that they were grown and left home, she felt empty without them. She decided to focus on her business to take her mind off her problems. But one evening, Mama Wofai had closed for the day and was heading back home on a motorbike when she got involved in an accident. She had fallen and broken her ankle, arm, and hip. Mama Wofai was rushed to the hospital where she was admitted to be treated. A message was sent to her children informing them about the accident, but they were too busy with their lives and unable to travel to see their mother. Her son, Olga, initially paid her hospital bills, but after a few weeks, he said his finances were beginning to stretch too thin and asked his sister Wofai for support. But of course, she couldn't as she had no money of her own. Her husband had ordered her to stop working when she became pregnant with their first child, and when Wofai asked him for some money to help with her mother's hospital bill, he had refused, saying he did not have any money. Several weeks passed, and Mama Wofai yearned for the presence of her children. But as this did not look possible, she gradually became depressed. There was no one to take care of her, and as she was not up to date with her hospital bills, she was being neglected by the doctors and nurses. She lay on the hospital bed feeling alone and dejected. Her mind went back to the years she had spent hustling to make sure her children were comfortable. But now, when she needed them the most, they had neglected her. The more Mama Wafai spent time in the hospital, the more she became unwell and lost a lot of weight. At this time, it was about 3 months of staying in the hospital. Life no longer had any meaning for her. The two most important people in her life no longer had time for her. One fateful night, while she lay on the hospital bed, Mama Wafai thought about her life and her children who were too busy with their lives and had no time for her. If it wasn't for her accident, she would have been busy at the market and that would have taken her mind off her problems. She cried bitter tears of regret and pain until she drifted off to sleep. Sadly, Mama Wofai never woke up the next morning. She had had a heart attack during the night, and because there was no doctor or nurse to check on her, she had passed away in her sleep. The hospital contacted her children and informed them of the incident. Wofai and her brother Olga could not believe their ears. Being away from their mother had made them oblivious to her suffering, and they were filled with so much guilt and regret. As her children, they had to travel down to Calabar to claim her body. Planning her funeral was expensive, but the guilt that they had somehow contributed to their mother's demise made them determined to splurge. Their mother had been everything to them, and growing up, they had seen all the sacrifices she had made for them and had promised to alleviate her suffering when they became comfortable, but somehow they had not kept to their promise. Wofai's husband, seeing how sad his wife was, gave her a huge sum of money as his contribution for the funeral, and Olga was prepared to use his savings to foot the funeral bills. The money that before now was not available to take care of their mother's hospital bills suddenly came out of nowhere, and they were willing to spend millions of naira on Mama Wofai's funeral. The funeral was a big affair with professional musicians, traditional dancers, and enough to eat and drink. The funeral parlor was beautifully decorated. Mama Wafai's casket was a brilliant gold color, and her tombstone was raised high and covered with tiles with her name boldly written on it. Her children went above and beyond to make sure their mother was buried in a befitting way. But everyone who heard of the circumstances that led to Mama Wofai's death despised Wofai and Olga for being such disgraceful children who abandoned their mother when she needed them the most. That is the end of this story. If you enjoy stories like this, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share our stories so others can also enjoy stories like this. Until I come your way again next time. Bye.